What's up, YouTubers? So today I'm going to be finishing up the UPS driving school. This is going to be part 3. This portion of the video basically has nothing to do with UPS, the school itself, and pretty much what you're going to be doing the next 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. So go ahead and get you started off with what you're going to do as soon as you leave Intergrad, the UPS driving school. As soon as you leave there, you are going to drive straight to your hub. The reason you're going to do this is because you're going to go there, talk to your manager, and see what route it is that you're going to have, and you're going to print out your route sheet from that Friday. And why they want you to do this is because they want you to leave as soon as you leave there. They want you to go run that route from every single stop, address to address, as the route's laid out. So none of this stuff is paid. None of this stuff is in their vehicle. You're in your personal vehicle. You're in personal time. And it's very, very nerve-wracking. It takes a lot of time. You're probably going to spend about 4 hours without even making actual stops. You're still going to spend roughly 4 hours just to do the route. So, that being said, the key things that you're going to want to keep in mind rather than trying to run an entire route and doing residentials, granted, I don't think that not doing it, you should do it at least once. That way you kind of get an idea of the entire route itself, get an idea of the neighborhoods, get a somewhat of an idea of the layout. That you want to do. But the things you're going to want to kind of repeatedly do, for those 3 days or every single day after work or anything of that sort, is going to be hit businesses, hit banks, schools, daycares, anything that you're thinking that you're going to have to stop at every single day. Those are going to be the things that you're going to want to go to. Trying to go to all these residential neighborhoods and going through address and address is a total waste of time. Just drive through the neighborhood, get an idea of the layout, and you'll be perfectly fine. Because you're never going to have the same house. You're never going to have the same, exact same spot in that neighborhood, every single week. You're going to have kind of fluctuation of houses. So to try to figure out these houses is a waste of time. Try to figure out the apartments, waste of time. Learn your businesses. Those are going to be your key points, because those are all going to be the ones that's based off of times on when you can and can't be there. Because certain businesses close late, or they, open late, or any of these certain things. The one thing you are going to want to know where it is in apartments is where the main office is and what time they open and close, what time their lunches are, because some of the areas are not like a no drop-off area because there's a lot of theft, so you have to drop it off in the offices, and a lot of these apartment complex offices have funky hours, and that's going to be a really, really helpful thing for you there. On top of that is really, really focus. It's going to be hard to figure out what I'm talking about just by looking at the sheet, but really, really focus at your pickups. Everything, most everybody thinks that UPS just drops things off. Well, UPS, the drivers actually pick up a lot of stuff, and typically you're going to have like scheduled pickups every single day. I had, I think, 12 or 13, somewhere in that area, in my first week. So those are going to be the key points, because those have exact select times that they want you there, and you have to be there at that time. They can't be late, you can't be early, because if you're there early, the things are not going to be done yet. So those are going to be really, really helpful for you in trying to figure out your first week or two in UPS as far as what you want to run beforehand in your own personal time. Now, to go ahead and get on started with your first week, your very first day, on Monday, you're going to want to get there at least 45 minutes early, because UPS does not do any kind of walkarounds of the warehouse, so you are not going to know where anything is whatsoever. You're not going to know where dyads are. You're not going to know anything. So find somebody that you somewhat know, maybe your local UPS driver, because typically if you're living in the area, you're going to have one of, the driver that goes to your house consistently. It's going to be in that hub. So try to find him, because you're probably going to have the best relationship with that guy. Or just find somebody that looks friendly and ask him where everything is. Typically, most everybody will help you out. But your first week is going to be very, very frustrating on trying to figure everything out. Try to go ahead and log into your dyad, but don't clock in. If If you clock in, you're going to get in trouble. Those things are basically the same things as a school. And on top of all of that, you're only going to get training for 3 days. And why you're only going to get training for 3 days, I have no idea, because this is probably the most stressful and pain in the butt job there is to start with, and you have little to no training. This is why I'm saying this. You're typically going to get one of two types of trainers in UPS. I went to school with 7 people, 6 of us made it out and started on the job, and basically all of us kind of had the same representation of what kind of teachers they have. It's pretty much, you're going to have the one type of guy, which is what I personally had, that wants to take over the route. He doesn't want to train you on anything because he's there just to take over and get the things done as fast as he can so he can get home to his family. It's understandable, but make sure you're training the person in the process. Let them fall behind. Don't sit there and rush them. Every single time I fell behind, the guy took over the route. I was not allowed to drive. I couldn't run the dyad system. You know, he wasn't allowing me to pick out my own boxes, so I knew where nothing was in the back of the truck. And it was a very, very bad experience because I learned by doing. I don't learn by observing. And there's a lot of people that you're pretty much going to be in UPS. You probably learn the exact same way that I do. So that's not a good learning experience, in my opinion. That's very, very bad. So that was one type. And 2 of the other guys that I had started out with, they said that they pretty much had a guy that pretty much sat in the passenger seat, never moved from the passenger seat, never helped you out with finding out what boxes it is. If you got behind, he just let you get 3 or 4 hours behind on your first week, so it made you look really, really bad. But to me, as a person that learns by doing, I would have rather had that person, because at least the days that I was expected to be running slow on my route system would have been the days that I would have had somebody there. So pretty much I was starting fresh. I knew nothing about how to run the route. I barely knew the area because I wasn't ever able to drive because the guy wouldn't let me drive. And so I was pretty much starting fresh on my Thursday on your first week. Now, one thing there is to consider, on your first week on the job, you're only going to have 70% of the standard route size. What I mean by that is on your second week, you're going to have the full route. My first week, I had, it pretty much averaged between 98 and 113, 114 stops a day on my first week. My second week, my very first day, I had 147 or 148 stops. And the pickups are pretty much always the same. Sometimes you get, pickups that you're supposed to get on your list, but it'll show up on your route sheet or on your diode system saying, hey, you got to pick up today. But those are all typically the same, but your stops can vary on how many. So I varied on my second week, between 147, let's say that, and 160, pretty much. That was pretty much my average of every single day, is somewhere in between there. And it's a nightmare. I'm going to straight up say it. UPS is a nightmare. They're a very, very hard company to start with. They're a very, very bad company to start with because they don't train you. Just like I was talking about, if you've been to the UPS driving school, if you somehow got a great group, but in my area, I think there was 48 people they were trying to train at once, and there was only 7 teachers. So we got little to no training. And it was just a bad experience all the way around. And so be careful with going to UPS if you have a good job or if you have a family, because it's not a joke. You're literally 50-50 on whether or not you're going to walk out of there after that 35 days of being there with a job. I mean, it's just how it is. And what I mean by that is because I was actually disqualified, I guess you would say, more so forced out. And I'll go ahead and tell you the reason why is because they're giving me on-demand calls. On-demand calls is basically where a company calls up UPS. It's not typically, that's not even on your route, or no, it's in your route area, but it's not on that route sheet for that day. And they call up UPS and say, hey, we need somebody to come pick up this package and bring it to the warehouse. So my second week is when they first started doing that to me. I think my first day on my second week I got 5 or 6. My second day, so my 7th day on the job, I had gotten like 8, somewhere in that area, about 8. And then on Wednesday of my second week, which would be my 8th day on the job, I got 17 on-demand calls. These on-demand calls are scattered all throughout your route. So it is very, very hard to get to them, especially in the area that I had. I had probably the worst route besides somebody else's route that was started with me that you could have. All the UPS drivers straight up told me they hated it. It's bad roadway systems, a lot of one-ways, very congested area, lots of walking traffic, and it's all college students. Nobody knows how to drive in this area. And it literally, you could go 4 miles down the road and it could take you 25 minutes. So to get like 13, 14, 15, 16 extra stops on top of 150 takes a lot of time. So on your second week, whenever you have a full route of that many, you're always, you're going to be behind unless you're just in a small area and your route is only like 100 stops. You're going to be at least an hour and a half, 2 hours behind. And I was unable to get to those on-demand pickups. I had no idea how to respond to them. Nobody ever even showed me how to respond to it. And it screwed me. It screwed me in the long run, but here's the reason why I think, I'm almost 100% positive of this. It's not really a thought. Here's the reason why they done this is because the one guy, like I said, we started with 7 and 6 of us passed. The one guy that did not pass UPS driving school was like the golden child of passing. He was the one everybody wanted to pass. His dad was a 25-year veteran. His brother, I think, worked there for 3 or 4 years in that area, and he was the one everyone wanted. So he didn't pass because he ended up starting the engine on the truck without buckling up first. Instant disqualification. So that's how strict this school is. That's not a joke. Doesn't matter if you're favored from the warehouse side or not. Be careful in your first week, but be careful the entire time you're under probation. Until you sign them papers with the union, you need to be on eggshells because they will fire you over anything. This is not a joke. So just be very, very careful. But back to where I'm talking about with him. He was the golden child. You could clearly tell the manager wanted him because he was very upfront and nice to this guy, and the manager was a straight up dick to the rest of us. And it was really disrespectful the way the manager done things. I'm not talking crap about any kind of ex-military, but he was ex-military and he had an arrogance about him. He thinks that everybody should have the same exact mindset of him, and that's just not the way you want to run a business like that. And it's not a good thing to have when you have that many people underneath you. So he disqualified, and every last one of us before our 2 weeks was up was disqualified on the job. And so it's wishy-washy on whether or not you're going to have a job when you start with UPS, because you cannot do anything wrong. And to get back to what I was saying about how I got disqualified, I had talked to at least 15 different UPS drivers. Every last one of them told me that you're not even supposed to have on-demand calls on your first 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You're not supposed to have any of it. Nobody else was actually getting on-demand calls. I don't know why the rest of the 5 people, disqualified. I can only give my information of why I was disqualified and what they told me. They basically told me I was ignoring them, and they disqualified me for that. So, like I said, be careful with UPS. Be careful with any union job, because if you're under a probationary period and they find something they don't like about you, they're going to get rid of you. Because if they don't get rid of you, then they're stuck with you, which is understandable. But they're doing a lot of people that are really hard workers, really dirty. And I actually turned down like 5 other jobs to go to this job, thinking that it was a great place to work for. And it turned out to be one of the worst starting experiences of my life. And I have worked for very, very large companies. I worked for Cisco Ball South for 6 years. They are the biggest food distributor in the world. At least they were whenever I was there. It's been about a year and a half since I've been there, and I currently work for Walmart RDCs, which is the redistribution center, the warehouse, and they're, you know, the biggest, I think, retail store in the world, if I remember right. So I've worked for very, very large companies, and none of them treated their new hires as bad as this company does. So be mindful of it. You got a good job, I wouldn't even bother with it. Don't waste your time. And if you like the videos, thanks for watching. I'm not trying to go on a rant about UPS, but a lot of people need to know these things because they are very two-faced when it comes to the hiring process and what they tell you and how it actually is. So that's a lot of companies nowadays, actually. And if you want to know about the other jobs that I've worked for, Cisco, Walmart, and I actually got hired with Frito-Lay as a driver, sales guy, whatever you want to call it. And they straight up lied to me. So if you want to kind of hear about the story about these things, let me know, comment down below, and I'll do my best to get these videos out to kind of let people know about these companies, because there's not much about that's straightforward about these new companies that are, you know, that pay decent, and a lot of people really like to know these things. I wish I would have had a video like this to show me and tell me what's going on and how honestly it is. So just thanks for watching. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you like the channel. I've got several other videos. I am going to be making more videos on this truck. I'm going to make videos on my four-wheeler. Just kind of doing everything I can. I only work 3 days a week, so this is kind of like a side hobby, I guess you would say. If I get to the point where I have a good following, then I'm going to try and do a lot of cool, fun things that are all budget oriented, especially on this truck, and building other things that's all like just straight budget builds, because not everybody has these big time YouTube monies like Street Speed 717 and Cletus McFarland and all these other guys that's on YouTube that's got million subscribers and making probably $150,000 a year. So I'll try to keep everything budget minded as far as I can. But thanks for watching the videos, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.